5 centuries ago, the coast of Patagonia was an enigma. Ferdinand Magellan, on his epic voyage around the world, anchored there in 1520. His men, astonished, reported encountering beings of colossal stature, whom they called Patagons, the Big Feet. Antonio Pigafetta, chronicler of the expedition, described men so tall that their heads barely reached the waist of one of the Spaniards. Were these exaggerated accounts from impressed sailors? Myth and reality intertwine in the earliest narratives of the conquest of America. But Magellan was not the only one. Decades later, other explorers, such as Chiesa de Leon, also mentioned the existence of tall peoples in South American lands. The legend of giants persisted, fueling the European imagination and the search for concrete evidence. Today, archaeologists and historians revisit these ancient chronicles, confronting them with new discoveries. Were the Patagonians merely a distortion of reality, or was there a grain of truth amidst the fantastical accounts? What happened to the forgotten giants who, according to history, walked through South America? This is the story we are going to unearth. Official history often ignores what it cannot explain. If you want to go beyond textbooks and analyze the chronicles, subscribe to the channel now. Archaeological evidence of giant inhabitants. The fascination with the giants of South America is not limited to the accounts of chroniclers. Archaeology, although cautious and sometimes skeptical, reveals discoveries that challenge the conventional narrative about the stature of pre-Columbian inhabitants. One of the most intriguing areas is Patagonia, the cradle of accounts of the Patagonians, the giants cited by Magellan. Although most scholars attribute the perception of gigantism to the effect of distance and the use of bulky furs, some archaeological sites in the region present skeletons with heights above average for the time, generating heated debates. The analysis of skeletal remains found in different parts of Patagonia, dating from different periods, shows considerable variation in population stature, with some individuals exceeding 1.80 meters, a remarkable height for the standards of that time. However, proving the existence of a race of giants requires more than the isolated analysis of tall skeletons. An in-depth study of the cultural and biological context of these individuals is necessary. Paleopathology, the study of diseases in ancient remains, can reveal whether the observed gigantism is the result of genetic or endocrine conditions, such as pituitary gigantism, or whether it reflects a broader population trait. Analysis of ancient DNA can also provide valuable information about the ancestry and genetic relationships of these individuals, helping to determine if they belong to a distinct ethnic group with unusual physical characteristics. Beyond skeletal remains, archaeology seeks other evidence that could corroborate the existence of a culture associated with these tall individuals. Tools, weapons, and artifacts of disproportionate size could indicate that they were made to be used by larger people. However, caution is needed when interpreting these findings, as the size of the objects may have other explanations, such as ritual or symbolic functions. Analysis of the archaeological context in which these objects are found is crucial to determining their true purpose. It is important to emphasize that research on the giants of South America faces considerable challenges. The scarcity of well-preserved archaeological sites, the difficulty of accurately dating skeletal remains, and the lack of funding for in-depth research are obstacles that need to be overcome. However, curiosity surrounding this topic persists, driving new investigations and analyses that perhaps will one day reveal the truth behind the myths and legends about the giants who, according to history, inhabited the South American continent. Theories about the disappearance of the giants. The mystery surrounding the tall peoples of South America lies not only in their supposed existence, but also in their apparent disappearance. What happened to these giants? Several theories attempt to explain their fate, navigating between limited archaeological evidence, ethno-historical accounts, and even pseudo-scientific speculation. One of the most plausible hypotheses points to disease. Isolated populations, such as the supposed giants, would be extremely vulnerable to pathogens introduced by European explorers. Epidemics of smallpox, measles, and influenza, which decimated large parts of the Native American populations from the 15th century onwards, could have rapidly wiped out these isolated groups, especially if their population was already small and genetically homogeneous. Another theory, closely linked to the previous one, suggests violence and subjugation. The accounts of chroniclers like Cieza de Leon, although imbued with admiration and fear, also reveal the conquering mentality of the time. Confrontations with Europeans in search of land and resources could have resulted in the extermination of entire communities of giants. The superior military power of the Spanish, with their firearms and armor, coupled with their brutality, would have made the confrontation unequal. Furthermore, the enslavement and forced displacement of native populations, common practices during colonization, could have contributed to the dispersal and disappearance of the giants, diluting their genetic traits among other ethnic groups. A more biological perspective raises the possibility that the condition of gigantism was not a stable genetic trait across the entire population, but rather a sporadic occurrence, perhaps associated with some specific medical condition, such as pituitary gigantism, caused by a tumor in the pituitary gland. Individuals with this condition might have stood out in their communities, generating reports of giants, but the absence of widespread genetic transmission would prevent the formation of an entire population with this characteristic. Furthermore, tall stature could be linked to specific environmental and nutritional factors in certain regions. Finally, we cannot rule out the possibility that the image of giants was, in part, a cultural construct, an exaggeration of the physical characteristics of certain indigenous groups, whether due to admiration, fear, or misunderstanding on the part of Europeans. The absence of robust archaeological evidence, such as complete skeletons of individuals over 3 meters tall, and the often vague and contradictory nature of historical accounts, raise doubts about the literal veracity of the giant stories. Perhaps the truth lies somewhere in between, combining elements of all these theories. The search continues, driven by fascination and the persistent hope of uncovering the secrets of the peoples who inhabited South America in ancient times. Adaptation and extinction in the Ice Age. The ice advanced relentlessly. The Ice Age, a period of extreme cold that reshaped the planet, tested the adaptability of all living creatures. For the supposed giants of South America, it represented an even greater challenge. Imagine the scenario: temperatures plummeting, resources dwindling, the megafauna, their main food sources, migrating or becoming extinct. Survival depended on physical and behavioral adaptations that not all possessed. It is speculated that their tall stature, which gave them advantages in milder climates, became a burden in a frigid environment. The energy demand to maintain such a large body at such low temperatures was exorbitant. Competition for resources with other, smaller and more adaptable human groups may also have been a crucial factor. While the giants depended on large prey and extensive territories for hunting, smaller, more agile groups could specialize in smaller resources, such as fishing and gathering, ensuring a more constant and diverse food source. The ability to take shelter in more protected locations, such as caves and valleys, may also have been a differentiating factor. Archaeological remains found at sites such as Fell Cave in Chile reveal the presence of human groups adapted to life in cold environments, with specific technologies for hunting smaller animals and building efficient shelters. Although complete extinction is a possibility, interbreeding with other human groups cannot be ruled out. Modern genetics has demonstrated the complexity of human history, with interbreeding between different populations over time. It is possible that the genes of the giants have become diluted in other lineages, becoming less perceptible over generations. The search for specific genetic markers that can prove this hypothesis is one of the challenges of current research. Comparative studies between the DNA of contemporary indigenous populations and ancient skeletal remains may reveal important clues about the genetic history of these peoples and their possible relationship with the giants of the past. So what happened to the tall peoples of South America? The answer, as with many mysteries of history, is complex and multifaceted. The Ice Age, competition for resources, possible interbreeding, and perhaps even an inability to adapt to a changing environment may have contributed to their disappearance. Archaeology, anthropology, and genetics offer us powerful tools to unravel this enigma, but the complete truth remains, for now, hidden in the depths of time. With each new discovery, with each new study, we get a little closer to understanding the history of these forgotten peoples and their role in the saga of humanity in South America. The culture and legacy of South American giants. What happened to the giants of Patagonia? Did they disappear without a trace? Or does their culture and legacy, even if fragmented, still reverberate in the fabric of South American history? The chronicles of the first explorers offer fascinating yet also nebulous glimpses into the lives of these unusual beings. Antonio Pigafetta, chronicler of Ferdinand Magellan's expedition in 1520, described encounters with individuals of impressive stature on the coast of Patagonia, beings he called Patagonians, a term that, by extension, came to name the entire region. His descriptions, even if possibly exaggerated from the perspective of the time, fueled the legend of a race of giants inhabiting the extreme south of the continent. But beyond their height, what do we know about their customs, beliefs, and social organization? Archaeology, in turn, attempts to reconstruct the mosaic of these people's lives from the vestiges that have withstood the test of time. Large lithic artifacts, such as arrowheads and scrapers, suggest an adaptation to a hostile environment and a now extinct megafauna. The analysis of skeletal remains found at archaeological sites in Patagonia, although controversial regarding exact stature, reveals a remarkable physical robustness consistent with the descriptions of the chroniclers. But material culture is only one facet of history. Spirituality, social organization, relationships with other indigenous peoples, all this remains, to a large extent, a mystery to be unraveled. Were the giants of Patagonia an isolated ethnic group, or part of a broader cultural complex that extended across other regions of South America? The chronicles of Chiesa de León, a 16th-century Spanish explorer, mention accounts of tall peoples in other parts of the continent, such as in the Ecuadorian region. These narratives, while lacking modern scientific precision, raise the possibility that individuals with similar physical characteristics inhabited distinct geographical areas. Genetic research, with advances in ancient DNA analysis techniques, may provide crucial clues to determine the degree of kinship between these populations and uncover their origins. The disappearance of the Patagonian giants remains an enigma. Wars with other indigenous peoples, diseases brought by Europeans, climate change, all these factors may have contributed to their decline. But it is possible that some of their genes and traditions have been perpetuated in other populations of the region, diluting over time. The legacy of the Patagonian giants, therefore, is not that of an extinct people, but rather that of a fundamental piece in the intricate puzzle of South American history, a reminder that the past holds secrets yet to be revealed. Myths and legends of giants in South America. The vastness of South America has always been a stage for encounters and clashes between cultures, a mosaic of peoples with histories that intertwine in a complex and fascinating fabric. At the heart of this rich past, legends echo about beings of colossal stature, figures that challenge our understanding of human history and that have populated the imagination of explorers and chroniclers for centuries. But who were these giants? Were they merely figments of the imagination, or was there a grain of truth behind the narratives? The search for answers takes us back to the 16th century, to the time of the great navigations. In 1520, Ferdinand Magellan, during his epic circumnavigation voyage, landed in Patagonia. It was there that his men reported encountering natives of impressive height, christened Patagonians, a term that would later give its name to the region. Antonio Pigafetta, the expedition's chronicler, described these individuals as beings of great stature and thunderous voice, fueling the belief in the existence of a race of giants. Decades later, in 1540, the Spanish conquistador Pedro Cieza de León, in his work Chronicles del Perú, also mentioned indigenous accounts of a race of giants who supposedly inhabited the coast of Ecuador, beings of immense strength who were said to have been exterminated by a plague. The descriptions of these early explorers, though permeated by the subjectivity of the time, sowed the seeds of doubt and curiosity. Was the unusual stature of the Patagonian natives exaggerated by the imagination of Europeans, eager for novelties and willing to believe in wonders? Or was there a real basis for these stories? Anthropology teaches us that variations in height are common among different human populations, influenced by genetic and environmental factors. It is possible that the Patagonian natives, with their diet rich in animal protein and their nomadic lifestyle, developed a height above average compared to Europeans of the time. However, the mere difference in height does not fully explain the persistence of the myth of giants. Indigenous legends, passed down orally through generations, also speak of colossal beings with supernatural powers, responsible for building monuments and shaping the landscape. In various South American cultures, we find narratives about giants who were said to be the first inhabitants of the earth, beings who were punished by the gods for their arrogance and destroyed by cataclysms. These stories, laden with symbolism and meaning, reveal a profound connection between the past, present, and future, a reminder that human history is far more complex and mysterious than we imagine. And so, the giants were gone, not by the sword or by famine, but by the inevitable march of time and the ceaseless dance of adaptation. Their story, etched in stone and whispered by the Andean winds, serves as a silent reminder. A reminder that even the most powerful beings are ultimately passengers on this planet. True immortality lies not in physical strength or size, but in the ability to inspire awe and curiosity in the minds of those who come after. Perhaps, as we contemplate their legacy, we can reflect on our own journey, on what we will leave behind when we too become echoes of the past.